If you want to attract clients and customers with your brand in a way that feels easy and natural, you are in the right place. We are going to be moving quickly today with some practices that we are actually going to do here together. And then we are going to wrap up with an opportunity. You can decide if you would like to join me and be supported in your brand building journey. Today's class, we are going to walk through 4 practices. First, how to know where to use your archetype. And this probably is not what you expect me to say. It's going to be a really fun experiential way of learning. Second is to leverage your type for maximum results, knowing where to focus, because we can have a million good ideas, especially as visionaries of our brands. We aren't just in the business of marketing ourselves. We actually have to do whatever our thing is. We have to work with our clients or create our products or whatever it is that our actual business is. We don't want to spend all of our time in this space of figuring out how to bring ourselves to the market. We need to prioritize. Number 3 is how to become a magnet for attention and sales. I love this exercise. I can't wait to do it with you. And then 4th is how to increase your odds of success. If you are ready to learn these 4 powerful strategies, these 4 powerful practices, we'll get started. Oh, my photo didn't show up here, but you guys can see my face in the little corner. If you are new to my orbit, my name is Kaye Putnam. I'm the psychology-driven brand strategist. Chances are you have taken my brand archetype quiz. It is essentially infamous in the interwebs these days. It's been taken over 200,000 times. In the last decade or so, I've worked behind the scenes over 1,000 brands, many of which are quote unquote big brands, 6 and 7 figure brands in my agency and with my one-on-one consulting, but then thousands of people that are at every stage of business, from just a kernel of an idea to making your first sales to ramping up, building momentum and scaling. I am obsessed with the magic of business and have been for as long as I can remember. I have been enthralled with unlocking the keys of what actually moves the needle in business, not just what everybody says that you should do. I've always had a mind for marketing. I've always had a mind for psychology. Those are actually my undergrad degrees, but I haven't always had a very strong sense of self. And you actually do need a sense of certainty and confidence and swagger that we'll talk about in our 3rd practice today that did not come naturally to me. So I had a very awkward start, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. Make sure that you have some scratch paper or a notebook if you're fancy and have a proclivity like me. Maybe you have your moleskin in front of you because we are actually going to be doing things. So let me know if this sounds familiar to you. When you look around your industry, when you look around your market, your niche, whatever it is, maybe you're a copywriter, maybe you are an artist, maybe you are a coach, whatever you are, there tends to be a bubble that envelops each little niche where everybody that's within that space starts to look and sound the same. It's like this gravitation towards the mean. And when this happens, we have an effect where our clients or potential clients or customers start to see everybody or most people like a commodity. They seem to be very price sensitive because they feel like they're comparing apples to apples. They don't have an orange that's standing out among all of the rest. And because your clients don't understand the value that you offer yet, their first question often is, okay, like, how much does this cost? What is the investment? I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford this, that type of thing. That situation can be maddening as an entrepreneur because we know that we have value. We know that we can transform people's lives. We know that we have skills to share, but it can be hard to elevate the conversation beyond price. It looks like my next slide isn't showing up. I had this picture of this very bougie looking woman who is getting onto a private plane because aside from the mean of the industry, we have a few superstars that tend to rise up to the top, but the advice that they give about how they made that happen tends to be insufficient. Advice like, just be yourself. This is true. This is absolutely true. The secret to your best brand, the secret to being your most magnetic self and to attracting the most leads and sales is being authentic to you and leveraging your innate strengths. That's everything that we're going to be talking about here in this training. But the simple advice to just be yourself is wildly insufficient. For me, like I said, it has been easier said than done. I got into this work of brand building and figuring out the strategy, the psychology driven strategy of building a brand because I needed it for myself. I grew up in a family that was very strict, very sheltered, very focused on rules and showing up in the right way. For that reason, I found myself being a chameleon. I was always bending myself to whatever situation I was in. You would get a different Kaye at church versus the Kaye that you would see on the cross country team versus the Kaye that you would see on the math counts bus. I was constantly looking for permission outside of myself and clues outside myself, maybe not even overt permission, but just looking to other people to figure out how I should be. How am I going to be liked? How am I going to fit in? How am I going to belong in any of these situations? So it's no surprise that when I went into this entrepreneurship online business world, I did the same thing. That was my pattern. Maybe this isn't your story. Maybe you have an incredibly strong sense of self, but no matter how good we are at knowing who we are, what our innate strengths are, what our points of difference are, it can be really hard to communicate them to the outside world. We feel like we're bragging. We feel like we're being self-centered. It feels counterintuitive to step into this strength that is necessary. So I was trying to model what everybody else was doing in this space. I was doing that thing that we were just talking about with all of the clones in a specific industry. I was looking at all of these people that were creating courses and teaching about marketing because that was my skill set. And I was wrapping it in this packaging of adopting other people's personality and point of view. Because if they're successful, if I just follow the same steps, won't I be successful too? Newsflash, it didn't work. And you all are smart humans. And I'm sure you can think of either yourself or people in your life who have that tendency to always be questioning or that tendency to always be wondering if they're good enough. And it has the exact opposite effect, right? So I was hopping around from identity to identity. I started out with a business called The Successful Military Wife because that was the context that I was in and had this kind of like creator personality that I was bringing out because I thought that that's what people would like from me. And then when that wasn't working, I was hopping into this identity of being an athlete. I was tapping into that part of my past and be like, okay, I'm going to be super motivational and I'm going to create weekly videos that help people get into action through tough love. And then that wasn't working. So then I was like, all right, I need to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to rebrand myself again. I'm going to help people find their it factor. And all the while, my offer was generally the same. I was still helping people get to the same transformation, but the way that I was communicating it to the world, the way that I was trying to show up as somebody else or with a mask, people online, humans, humans are smart. They can sense that. It can feel like too much pushing. We need to find the way to flip the magnetic charge so that we're not going out and like seeking people out and pushing them away. We want to flip the polarity so that people are drawn to us. And we have this tool. If you've been in my orbit, you know this tool. We're going to talk a little bit about it here generally, and then we're going to dive into how to use it. Most people benefit from having a framework, this operating system that they can use to help us lean into certainty, to help us make discernment about who we are when we're at our best. Because the reality is, we can be the hero in parts of our life. We can be the creator in parts of our life. We can be the innocent, the royal, all of these different archetypes that we'll introduce here in a second, because they're connected to universal human desires. And we all desire those things and we all embody those things to different degrees. But brands are built on a singular point of view, having a unique point of view. So wouldn't it make sense to lean into the top one, top two? Sometimes my students or clients choose to lean into their top three when they're going rogue and focus on being that, because that's what comes most easy to us. And it gives us a framework to make that decision about what's going to be on brand for us, what's not. We have this unconscious understanding of these 12 archetypes because they show up in movies, they show up in the grocery store aisles, they show up in The people that we interact with in our lives, they show up in celebrities and so on. They are cross cultural, they are timeless. The context might change, the story might change, but the human values that they're connected to are the same. So these are all examples of sage and magician blends. And they're a character, they're a set of ideals that shows up. And when we tap into them, we're tapping into the certainty, knowing that people desire this. People desire wisdom, people desire change and transformation. They desire whatever your top 2 or top 3 archetypes stand for. There's no wrong archetype. It's that we're all attracted to all 12 of these ideals, and we are attracted to people who stand on their own, who stand and are unapologetic about who they are, what they believe, and the movement, the change that they're creating in the world. And because it's hard to articulate it ourselves, we can use the archetypes as a inspiration gathering tool to reflect back to us these things that can be extremely compelling about our brand. It's the energy that brands or humans embody that pull people in. Again, it's like flipping the magnet around. I'm having this visual in my mind of when you have the magnet pointed one way, it pushes away other magnets, but when you flip it, they stick together. That's what we want to happen for your brand. We love brand archetypes because they shortcut the know, like, and trust cycle that each and every one of your potential clients has to go through. There's that subconscious, this collective unconscious understanding of what you stand for when you're representing 1 or 2 of your top archetypes and not trying to be all 12 or not having any emotional appeal whatsoever. Because of that singular point of focus and identity, the right people are connected to us because you're standing in your truth and they can understand your truth and they appreciate your truth. And for those that don't resonate, they're repelled and we have less problem clients. It gives you less decisions to make because you have blinders on, hopefully, when you're doing this right. And then it helps us tap into our innate strengths. I liken it to swimming downstream in a flowing river instead of trying to turn around and swim upstream. Let's make this as easy as possible. Building a business is not easy, but it can feel a heck of a lot more natural and a heck of a lot more fun when we're doing it in a way that honors our unique genius. There is the quiz on my website after this class, and you can head over and take it. There's 2 things that I always tell people if you aren't sure what your archetypes are. One of them is to trust your intuition, to take the quiz kind of as quickly and on that like gut unconscious instinctual level as possible. And then the other is that you have veto power. So there are pages that identify each of the 12 archetypes that speaks to each of the 12, and trust that gut knowing, trust that gut yes that can happen, or even the logical yes. Be like, yeah, that sounds like me. That sounds like something that my friends compliment me on or my clients compliment me on. And our goal is to choose 2. We want to have a primary and a secondary. Even as you're reading over the descriptions of each of the 12 here, you're probably seeing pieces of yourself in these different 12, right? And you're in good company because the biggest brands in the world, the billion-dollar brands, are using this. There are agencies that are paying millions of dollars to build out their brand identities and strategies and marketing campaigns are using archetypes. And it's been transformational for so many of you. It has given people permission to see themselves clearly. It's given them permission to see what they thought were, what's the word? Like were weaknesses or things that they had to overcome and to embrace it and to bring it into their brand fully instead of trying to hide it. I love this one. I've been wandering around lost in a desert, not having a clue about my core message until now. Knowing how to use your archetype. Once we've made this decision, so we've talked about using the 2 strategies that we can use to make that decision. We have personal power to make it, and then we also have this quiz tool that can help point us in a particular direction. And this is beautiful because now we get to start taking inspiration from a much broader space. We don't have to just look at all of the other chiropractors or all of the other people that are selling whatever product that we're selling. I could just give you this left brain logical way of knowing where to use your archetypes. And I will put it up on the screen here. So as you glance through it, note, have you incorporated your archetype into all of these places yet? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. There's always room for improvement, right? But this isn't particularly helpful or eye-opening. It's just a list, right? So I wanted to do something a little bit more intuitive because the thing is, because we're connecting on the emotional and unconscious level, we have to learn how to trust our own unconscious. And this can be a difficult or uncomfortable place for my fellow sages in particular, like those of us who have trusted our books and our courses and everything to give us the answers, that outward permission that we're looking for, that I was looking for in the past. I'll speak for myself. But the truth is, your best ideas about where to apply your brand archetype are going to come from your own brain. Now, I think the way or the reason why a lot of people get this wrong or don't get as high quality of insight is that they're missing one of these two halves. And we have to think about what we're feeding our brain with first, but then we also need to give ourselves chance for our brain to process all of that information, do its magic, and to push out ideas. We need to learn to listen to those ideas. And most people are strong either in neither of them. That's not a part of your daily ritual. I'm going to explain more about what these specifically are in a second. But either they're ignoring both of them and they're wondering why they are feeling confused and spinning and stuck. Other people are doing one, but not the other. But really, you need both to come up with the powerful insight that you need to make these connections. I would love for you on your piece of paper to draw these two columns, brain in, brain out, and ask yourself, what are the activities that you do currently that feed your brain with inspiration? If you have read The Artist's Way, I think it's behind me. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, amazing book about the process of creation. One of the things that she says is non-negotiable is that you need to go on artist dates. Once a week, you need to be in the process of feeding your brain inspiration. And while as a busy mom of two, her book shames me every time I read it because she says that everybody can find an hour, but I haven't quite figured out how to just take myself out on a date once per week quite yet. But I do find little mini oases during my day to do this. Here's some examples that have worked really well for me in the past. When I find somebody who's walking their talk and who has a particular expertise that I want, tapping into an educational framework that they have extracted from their brain is such an incredible shortcut. So I invest in courses all of the time. And it's such a great way to spark some of these ideas, to have somebody else do the process of curating and collecting all of this inspiration for me and ideas for me. And then I get to just go through and I get to pick what resonates with me. And because I have the framework of my archetype in mind, it becomes much easier to look at a bunch of ideas and be like, that's speaking about change and transformation, inner power. That's something that's on brand for me. I'm going to use that in my brand. I can tell that that was probably speaking to a different archetype. Maybe I don't even recognize what archetype it is, but it doesn't seem in alignment with my core message. So I'm just going to leave that idea. So courses are definitely one for me. Another one is podcasts. I particularly get a lot of my best ideas when I'm moving my body. Whenever I go to the gym or I go for a walk, something like that, I like to fuel my brain before I get my blood moving. Maybe this will be the result of your next great epiphany, but I like to fuel my brain, then get my blood moving. And then the key is that we need to have brain out exercises or practices built into our day. So brain in is all of the ways that you're fueling your brain. Brain out is creating space. It's all of the ways that we empty our brain. A key one is some act of creation, journaling or speaking, whether that's voice notes or just to a camera or whatever works for your personality. We want to choose something that is easy and natural for you. Taking notes, creating lists. We have to get our genius out of our brain. We have to give all of the input that we're putting in a chance to percolate, and then we have to get it out. It really is this two-step process. And it may seem obvious, but when you're auditing your day, when you're writing your list of what you're actually doing, not just what you think that you should be doing, but what are you actually doing on a weekly basis to fuel and then to make space and to clear out your brain? Are you sitting in silence? Are you meditating? Are you taking time to create, to sit down, to go through the act of getting stuff out of your head? Are you sleeping adequately? I have some of the best ideas when I sleep because now that we've tasked our brain with our archetypes, like we've done the work to identify our archetypes, it already, because it's a machine, it's a pattern recognition machine. When we feed it a bunch of good stuff, it will start to make connections. This is an awareness exercise. If you aren't balanced on brain in, brain out, just ask yourself, what today can I add to my ritual and routine to do one of these things that I'm lacking? Second practice for today, how to leverage your type for maximum results. The reason I love teaching about branding is because I don't have to update my course every time Facebook or Instagram or Google changes their algorithm, because the things that I am teaching you is true this year. It's going to be true next year. It's going to be true 10 years from now. This information does not go out of style and it does not go out of practice. Human nature and human desires hold steady over time. Yes, the world around us changes, but if we're still focusing on those values that each of the archetypes represent, we can find new ways, new stories, new examples to bring it to our brand, to bring it to our people, our orbit of humans that are around us. But the core message stays the same. We don't have to reinvent ourselves every 6 or 3 months. A lot of people, before they come into contact with me and my work and my brand, they have been rebranding themselves every 3 or 6 months for like the first 2 years. And no shame, I did the exact same thing before I figured out this framework. And now that I know it, I continue to create, I continue to express myself, but my core strategy has not changed. I think we're going on like 4 or 5 years. I've had the same colors, I've had the same fonts. It has not changed because it's rooted in truth. And a Harvard study has shown that up to 95% of decisions are made on a subconscious level. Crazy pants. So we need to make sure that we are focusing here or focusing on the things that matter, focusing on these subconscious triggers so that we're creating the leverage that we want. Because if logic is only going to get us to 5% of our decision making faculties, we're missing out on a big piece of the decision making pie. Next practice, strategy versus tactics. This is another balance exercise because we need both. We need a strategy, and then we need to put the strategy into action with tactics. But again, similar to how we were looking at a week and documenting what we actually do, maybe look back at like the last 3 months of your business. How and where are you investing in the strategic parts of your business? And how and where, like how much time, how much energy are you investing in the tactics? Strategy that underlies everything has the potential to create exponential results because it makes everything else better. When you have a more compelling brand, that makes your ads work better because you're hitting on those emotional triggers. When you have a strong brand, you get to have higher conversions on your website because people stick around longer. And just everything snowballs and has the potential to create exponential results. When we're focusing on just the tactics level, so if I'm just focusing on creating Instagram reels and spending an exorbitant amount of time there, again, speaking for myself, I have dabbled and it just takes up a ridiculous amount of time. The results that we're going to see of that tactic really only has the potential for linear improvement in our brand. So things that I would put on the strategy level, and you can use your own discernment as well. These are our overarching brand strategy. This is the stories that are core to our brand. So you can use them in your emails, your webinars, your products, all of the different things. It's also having a vision. So knowing where your North Star is, what you're actually trying to achieve with your brand. Our reticular activating system in our brain, the one that is helping us filter all of those ideas that we're creating for our business, if it knows what the vision for our business is too, then you're cooking with fire. Then not only is your brain helping you process and identify really fun epiphany aha moments about how to put your archetype in different places, it also knows where you're trying to go to, and it'll start seeing opportunities. I just had one when we were sitting, what was it? Oh, I'll tell you more about it at the end. I need to write it down so I don't forget. But yeah, I had an epiphany moment about how to make the Clarity Collective even more amazing. because my brain has been tasked with this overarching vision. Too many people in the online space teach tactics as a magic bullet, and they almost never are because they have to be built on a strong strategy. Strong tactics only work when you have a strong strategy. So again, it's awareness of the balance of these two. So third practice is to become a magnet for attention in sales. And to do this, we can borrow confidence from our archetypes because like we mentioned in the beginning, it's really hard to recognize our innate strengths. We can fall into traps of comparisonitis or imposter syndrome. And just as a general truth, this isn't about you or I, but people lack certainty, partly because the world is very uncertain. This is a truth about the world. We do not know what is going to happen. But when people project certainty, even if it's on a narrow subject area, people are drawn to that. So, what can you be certain about? That's what this exercise is about. On your piece of paper, write a numbered list. And what we're going to do is we are going to list as many reasons as humanly possible, both logically and emotionally, left brain and right brain, about why somebody would be bananas not to work with you. I can feel your collective groan because this feels silly. It feels self-serving. But the more that we can embody who we really are, the more we can stand unapologetically in our truth, the more that we can be confident when we're saying, I can help you in whatever way that we uniquely help. That certainty is necessary. We need a little bit of swagger. We need a little bit of gumption. And we can do that by reminding ourselves on the regular why we're amazing. What are some of your reasons? I'll read you some of mine. The reasons why somebody would be mad not to work with me. So my intuition is incredibly accurate, especially with one-on-one clients. I see the big picture when other people get lost in the details, lost in the sauce. I've been studying branding and human psychology for over 15 years. I have my undergrad degree in this area. I started my first business at 16. I have lots of real world experience. I teach from real world experience, both from my own brand and from the clients and students that I work with. I've read hundreds of books. I don't even want to know what my total lifetime bill for books and courses has been. I've proven to myself that I can do hard things. I've paid off debt. I've trekked 70 miles to the base camp of Everest, skied in the Junior Olympics. I'm a master of change, putting myself out of my comfort zone, and so on and so on. Christopher shared, I can help connect dots nobody else sees. Angela says, I can show you who you really are. Christine, I see what people's blind spots are. I walk my talk. I am deeply intuitive. I am authentic. Ash, I can support you without enabling you. Strong. Cassiopeia, I can teach others how not to make the same mistakes that I have. Our story becomes the way that we serve, right? I've literally walked through fire and survived. Phoenix, your name is apt. David has high standards for my work and guarantee quality results. Amazing. Amazing. I want to hire all of you. We need to be more unapologetic about these strengths. We might not come out and just post, I'm super intuitive, so you should hire me. But find examples, find stories that demonstrate these truths about yourself. When have you shown your intuitiveness? What's a blind spot that a client couldn't see that you helped them see? And what was the result? Another way to do this, as you continue to work, as you continue to serve and impact people, collect all of your kind words, take screenshots, save your emails, put them all into a folder on your phone or your computer, and return to them if you're ever wondering if you're worthy of doing this work, because I promise you, you are. Make it a habit to celebrate the big and small ways that you're helping and impacting people and keep track of it. My husband was in the military for about a decade. And the military actually does this really well. They have this entire binder that each of them create called an I Love Me book. Now, I'm a digital girl, so I have mine on my computer and on my phone. But how can you create an I Love Me book so that if you're ever wavering in your intention to get this genius out of your head and into the world, you can return to that knowing? Your energy around this is even more important than the strategy and the tactics. And then our final exercise today is to increase our probability of success. We're going to do this by doing a quick energy audit. Everybody has deposits in their life, drains in their life, and resources. Here are mine. Vulnerable share. Deposits are things that add energy to your life. Drains aren't necessarily bad things, but they are things that expend energy. Your results will never outpace your energy. It's important to recognize what is actually contributing to that energy. And I'm not going to get too deep into it here because we don't have the time or the space, but I have an acronym, embodiment. We actually have 4 different energy systems. M is our emotional energy. So you could think about, what are my deposits for emotional energy? Maybe it's going out to lunch with a friend. Maybe it's calling my mom. What are the drains when it comes to emotional energy? Maybe it's a recurring fight that you have with your partner. Bod is your body energy. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you moving? Are you drinking water? E is your intellectual energy. Are you fueling your brain? We already talked about that in our first exercise. And then maybe you have some intellectual drains, like watching reality TV, no judgment. Meant is the meaning that you instill into your life, whether that's God or universe or some other spiritual power or just your innate personal power. How are you adding energy to that system and what takes it away? There's that quote that has been going around the interwebs for years that says, you and Beyonce have the same 24 hours in a day. It's supposed to be motivational to get you off your butt and be like, okay, if she can do it, then I can do it. But the difference between Beyonce and you is what's happening in that third column, in that resources column. One of them that I want to highlight, which is incredibly powerful, is when I tapped into a mastermind group. And this was one of the inspirations for the brand Clarity Collective that I'm going to share with you here shortly. And I'm buzzing with excitement to do that. I was in like 2 really expensive masterminds. And it is amazing what just being in the energy of other entrepreneurs can do. They normalize results that you don't think, or you never even occurred could be possible for you. So I was in a group of people, and the leader of one of the group had a $750,000 launch. Now, this is still way outside of what my launches do. But just the fact and like being in the same space, hearing that, embodying that, like seeing that happen for another person creates a sense of possibility, especially when we're working online, when we're working in these isolated spaces with family and friends who don't necessarily understand what we're doing. Having a resource that is other entrepreneurs, some kind of network or community of entrepreneurs, is magical. This also happened when I started doing CrossFit. I did CrossFit before the pandemic happened, and then I stopped and I haven't been back. But stretching my understanding of what's possible, what women quote unquote can lift in terms of heavy weights, was completely blown out of the water, because there was these women that were like 110 pounds, beautiful, friendly, lovely, and then they would lift things that were twice as much as what I could lift. And it's amazing what can happen when you normalize different sets of results and different circumstances. It's not normal to show up and teach live to this little tiny lens in front of you with humans on the other side all over the world. That's not normal. But I get to do it, and I get to be around other people that normalize that for me. Thank goodness. I love Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. He says, you choose your future with your actions each day. Almost done. Let's recap our 4 practices that we went through today. We talked about making time for both brain in and brain out activities so that we can trust our brain to answer that question, where should I use my archetype? It was kind of that Shyamalan twist. It wasn't the logical answer, although we did show the checklist of all of the logical places. But we also needed to tap into our own subconscious so that we can build a brand on that level. We talked about focusing on strategy over tactics, or at least balancing the two, making sure that you're not overweighted in the tactics area without spending any time on strategy. We also talked about how to stand in certainty and confidence and increase swagger. And then finally, how to assemble resources to support our success, to increase our probability for the results that we desire. And then being mindful about what is adding energy to our life in those 4 different areas and what is taking energy away. And at this point, you have something to consider. Ask yourself, do I have everything that I need right now to reach the next level of success that I'm reaching for? Do I have the mentorship? Do I have the support? Do I have the coaching and everything that I need? And maybe you do. And that's amazing. I'm so thrilled. But for those of you that desire more support, I want to introduce an all inclusive container that I have created for you that I think is my most powerful offer ever. And I can't wait to tell you more of the details. What is the Brand Clarity Collective? We are multiplying mentorship, meaning information, frameworks, tools, templates, and expert coaching with a mastermind. I truly believe that those two ingredients are necessary. That's where I've seen the most change happen in myself and in students of mine. And what I've done is I brought together my entire suite of my best brand building programs into one place. And I'm giving you the master key to access it all. This includes all 12 of the brand fluency archetype courses. Now, you don't need all 12 for a single brand, but especially if you are wondering or if you want to exercise that veto power and make that decision in an informed way of what your top archetypes are going to be, you now will have access to all 12. And then if you work with your own clients, if you're a writer, a coach, or a designer, having access to all 12 means that you can support all of your clients because they're all going to be different archetypes. They're not all going to be magicians or sages or royals, even if that's what you are. So it'll give you intel to support that process. Brand New Brand is my signature brand building A to Z experience. You create a brand book through that process where you're defining all of your foundational brand strategy from colors to logos to the stories that you're going to tell to the bio to your content calendar and everything in between. Clarity Week was my first introduction of my Clarity Code framework. It's quick clarity. It was originally a 5-day event. Brand Advantage is a 30-day brand building momentum sprint. We are going to be running it live 2 times per year inside of the collective. Clarity to Scale is all about building the system to increase your leads, grow your audience, and grow your sales. And then finally, Amplify is my one-on-one coaching program. I pulled out lessons, some training that I created for them, and I put it into this experience as well. And I love reading all of my students' words so much. And I can't even possibly touch on everything that's in there, but just as the tiniest of sneak peeks, these are some of the things that are included in the curriculum side of the house. So we have writing your positioning statement, blending your archetypes, how to package up your offer to make it irresistible to your ideal clients. We have how to build demand, including content, including sales mechanisms, whether that's a sales call or something else. We have how to actually create the content, how to systemize it, and then all of the energetic things. These are testimonials for some of the individual courses that are inside of it. Best money I ever spent. And I took all of those different courses and then I organized them in my Clarity Code framework so that it's easier. So you don't have to like go through Brand New Brand and then go through Brand Advantage and then go through the Clarity Week, etc. You can go to the section that you need at any given point. So core is all about who you are on the inside, build your brand on truth, not trends. This includes all the archetype stuff. Offer is how to make your offer irresistible to the market. Demand is building your audience and your sales. E is about your energetic influence as an entrepreneur. And then on the other side of the house, in addition to all of these courses that you get access to, we are starting a mastermind, a community. The collective is going to have 3 monthly calls each and every month, and then special events on top of that. The group coaching call, a monthly guest expert, and then also a deep dive into a single member's brand each month. And then there's this whole community where you can connect with each other for JV opportunities or for interviews, to trade mentions in your newsletters, or just to simply have quote unquote digital coffee with somebody who gets it, who is in this entrepreneurial journey like you. This is also a testimonial from Brand New Brand, which is included. I cannot wait for you to experience everything that's in it and get results like Elizabeth has. Everything that's included, it's well over an $11,000 value. And we are offering it for $297 per month for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, You can decide at that point if you want to stay in the community and pay a small membership fee. You can also upgrade to one-on-one. So if you're ready and you know we're ready, I am ready for you. Another student. We've had just the incredible honor of being behind the scenes of so many brands through all of these courses, and especially in the ones where we have this community element. That's where people get results. They get results not only with the information, not only with the intel, but with that support, with that momentum, that drafting action that happens when you're in a community of people going for big, audacious goals. I can answer questions about the collective if you have any. I can answer any questions about archetypes, about anything related to building a brand. All right. B says, I'm creating a brand for my vacation rental. Is this something that you can help me with? I am so excited for you, B. And this is super top of mind. We're building a cabin right now in the mountains of North Carolina, and it's going to be a rental. So I am also branding my rental cabin. And the process is the same. So you still have to have a personality as a rental. You want to have a point of view. You want to have these different touch points informed by your archetypes. The output, the assets might be different. So maybe you have a guidebook, maybe you have like your logo is on a sign or on your doormat. Your listing for your rental might be formatted in a certain way. Anytime when we're asking humans to make a decision is where we need brand strategy, particularly if there is an abundance of competition in the market, which is true for vacation rentals. It's amazing. Vanessa says, so excited about this. Yes. Mal, I am a maverick and royal. Between the pictures and color palettes, it feels like I can only use gold, beige, or gray shades. Gold is true to me, but it feels like it wouldn't go well with shades of gray. Any thoughts or suggestions on that? Yeah. Okay. Maverick and royal. So there is a ton of lessons if you do join me in the collective with the long form answer to this question in my whole process, but let me explain it here quickly. Two things are kind of at play. One of them is when you're combining two archetypes and you're blending them, you can decide if you want to lean towards one for specific assets of your brand and then lean towards the other for other assets in your brand. Meaning you don't necessarily have to have this 50-50 mix in every single asset. So your color palette doesn't necessarily need to be equally maverick and royal. You can lean towards royal for your colors, and then maybe maverick is going to show up more in your language, for example. So they don't have to be a perfect mix. That's the first kind of like permission slip that I want to give you. The second one, maverick tends to have a lot of contrast. It tends to not be afraid to use like a red or a black or like a, something that is deep and saturated. And actually royal is kind of the same way. When you look at the jewel tones, kind of traditional luxury tones in colors, like the deep purple, deep green, like emerald green, ruby red, you can find some of those same themes showing up in royal as well. I would encourage you to do an inspiration gathering exercise on Pinterest where you're pulling together the inspiration that you like from Maverick and you're pulling together the inspiration that you like from Royal and use that exercise as a way to make that decision. So like, okay, am I just leaning towards one or the other that I'm going to kind of like set the other one aside and not worry about incorporating it into my design because it'll come through in other places? Or maybe I can start to see places where they intersect. I hope that makes sense. Because I've seen gold and gray work together, but I don't necessarily think that your brand has to be gold and gray because you have a maverick and royal mix. I think that there's more options there if you do some more exploration. Okay, Michelle says, I love the idea of using archetypes as a filter. I understand this concept as an innocent archetype, but as a creator archetype, everything seems to be so broad. How would you use the creator archetype to filter what you put into your brand? I'm looking to sell my prints and my jewelry. Yes, and especially true for a maker's business, right, Michelle? So you are literally a creator. I think that you could adapt strategic themes from the creator. Hang on, I don't know if that's the most useful way to answer. The thing that popped into my mind first is like maybe you are leaning into your innocent as your point of differentiation because your actual business is creating. I would wager to guess that a lot of your competition focuses on being creative. Like that's almost default language just because of the industry that you're in. So the thing that might be more unique for you would be bringing in that innocent. So maybe you're going to focus more there. And then the creator is going to come in with the actual product that you are creating. Creator visually is wildly varied. If we're looking at, say, clothing designers or literal artists as inspiration in other niches other than the one that you're creating for, we can use some of that as an inspiration. Maybe the archetype itself isn't so much of a filter, but a specific style or a specific expression, like a specific trend is what is on brand for you as a creator. Or you can focus just on, like I said, the strategic decisions that come from the creator brand, things like having a series of limited editions or constantly reinventing your style or having new collections that come out at different times of the year. You are the innovator, you are the maker, you are the person that we look for as a tastemaker in a lot of ways. So give yourself permission that you don't always, or that you don't have to stay so solid as the creator. That is kind of a unique archetype in that way. But again, if that feels like too loosey goosey, too wild, then you might decide that you want to lean into your innocent for some of those foundational decisions and then let your products do the talking for your creator side. Because you're right, it is a little bit more difficult. All right, Phoenix says, I believe I'm explorer and lover archetypes. The exploring is the inner landscape, not the world, and love is spiritual love. I might have a touch on the innocent too. I help empower Christian women to be who they were created to be and to live life in full bloom, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The words I use are freedom and connection. Yep. The innocent comes in when I'm helping people go back to their original design for creation, Garden of Eden. Yep. I use growth metaphors, images of flowers, vibrant colors. Does it sound like I have the right archetypes? Yes. And that whole Garden of Eden is a little bit of that innocent coming in because it's about creating or finding or returning to some version of heaven on earth. And I love that you identified Garden of Eden as a metaphor for that. That's fantastic. It sounds like you were spot on, Phoenix. Angela, I am a Sage Royal brand. I have trouble creating an interactive community for my clients who are beauty brand competitors who are mostly not Sage. Low read rates, not much sharing. Where would one even begin? Yes. Okay. Sage Royal brand. Okay. I'm trying to think of some specific examples here. So there's a content matrix inside of the collective that speaks to the 4 types of content that you need to create to actually generate sales. One of them is centered around essentially engagement. It's a C word. So it's, what is it? Is it charisma? Charisma is the C word that I use to describe it. But essentially what we're doing is we're reinforcing people's identity and we're inviting engagement. As a royal and as a sage, royal, I could imagine you highlighting leaders of your industry, maybe doing interviews with influential people, people who are seeing the most success so that you can let others into their secrets of success. I could see you having kind of an exclusive inner circle that people either apply to be a part of or they have to jump through some other group to be a part of. It's not just like everybody who wants to be involved can be there. And then that would naturally increase conversation. Sage in general doesn't tend to get a ton of engagement by the nature of it. So I imagine like if you shared case studies that were relevant to them, people aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. But you could do things like having either like a focus, like a topic focus of say the month, maybe even doing a book club, but things like that could invite community. So giving people content that they won't find anywhere else is very royal. Giving people or like having some level of exclusivity so that they have to literally invest in being there and then they'll be more invested in the conversation. And then, yeah, maybe a book club or like just having a focused topic. So one of the worst things that we can do as content creators is to make it really hard for people to engage. So it's better to create polls or like quick things where people can share just a short opinion instead of asking for like this long essay of reply because people are busy. So those ideas hopefully should help Angela. Allison, You said people like to know the fringe ways magicians solve problems. That is something I feel awkward about. Not sure people would understand. So I talk in general terms. Is this something I should change? Obviously, we need to stay within our own sense of safety, and we might not want to share all of our personal business. But one of the things that is unique about the magician is that they have techniques that are outside the realm of normal, and people are fascinated by it. I think, who is it? I don't even necessarily think he's primary magician, but there's this guy named Dave Asprey who's in the health hacking and wellness space. And he's famous for inventing bulletproof coffee, which is butter mixed in coffee in the morning so that you're not getting any carbs, but you're getting a bunch of fat in the morning. And that weird fringe ritual in of itself kind of like blew up his brand. So maybe it's not that you're sharing everything, but what is like some ritual or some routine or some tool that has legitimately gotten you amazing transformation, amazing results yourself that you can share with people? I think it is worth pushing that comfort zone a little bit. Lauren, thank you for sharing that. She said that she has the same issue as an artist. I'm leaning more into my secondary as an explorer. And then I'm seeing my tertiary royal coming through naturally too. Yeah. This happens in almost all industries. So if your primary archetype happens to be kind of commonplace in your industry, so for nonprofits, this might be caregiver. For like fitness coaches, this might be hero. So if you just tend to fall into the expected archetype, it doesn't mean that you can't use it, but it might mean that you're strategically going to lean a little bit more into your secondary or tertiary, just so you're standing out more. Sally, I'm a sage rebel with alchemy pioneer, detective, researcher, living in self or living as self, using inner authority to make correct decisions, unity through individuation, activate and teach people how to get their own insights, somatic regression to root core issues. I finding most people like to stay small. I need to work with powerful people. Love it. I'm hearing a lot of magician with that inner power, and then a bit of the other things coming in there as well. Somatic regression is also like one of those, not fringe, but it's an unusual technique that not everybody has a lot of experience with. So it's super interesting. I love that. And then one little trick, and I talk about this in the ideal client that you want to get in our mirror language exercise, and then in our 3D messaging exercise in the collective. And I'll share a little snippet. So instead of really focusing or like dwelling on pain points, especially with your archetypes, it's much more effective to speak to the vision that people have for themselves, like inviting them to step into their higher self, their more powerful self, using more of that language, less of like, are you feeling stuck? Are you feeling pain? Whatever it is, whatever the symptoms are. You might use those just kind of like matter of factly and in the beginning to make sure that people are in the right place, but spending a lot more time on calling people into the future can help attract people that are more empowered to take action. Sonia, what I do is the creator. I'm a brand identity and brand strategist. Hello, fellow brand geek. Creator comes through in the way that I relate branding, or caregiver, sorry. Caregiver comes through in the way that I relate branding to my health and fitness journey. I create a safe space for clients to explore and discover their brand. I'm also very generous in my ideas and willingness to help. I love that. This archetype work has been so helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. I love hearing the reflections. Okay, Melissa, I'm really struggling with branding my counseling and cognitive development therapy business. Just getting started. I'm a caregiver, innocent girl next door. I want to meet people where they are, give them a safe space, but give them hope and help them reach their full potential. Color is hard, font, etc. I want to stand out, and I'm not sure how. Well, if you want the full kit and caboodle answer to that question, you would find a ton of value inside everything in the collective, particularly brand new brand. Brand new brand is set up for people who are coming back to the foundation and then helping you step by step by step by step make each of those decisions. It's really, really powerful. And you're on the right track. You're here. So pat yourself on the back for taking action. It feels a lot when you're getting started, but you're honing in on the right things right from the start. Like I shared my story before, I didn't discover how to do this right away. I was too busy trying to be like everybody else. And you get to shortcut all of that and step into who you truly are, which is really exciting. Sloan says, I see my brand personalities coming out in spades in my chosen genre based around erotic love stories. Love it. I have maverick, explorer, entertainer personality where my brand is also lover and creator, but I don't know for sure what my tribe of readers identifies with more. Author brands are a little bit interesting because your readers are so connected to like your book characters. So I could see using archetypes as a tool to help with the writing process, even. But for yourself as an author, you might decide that, okay, although I'm writing romance, erotic romance, who am I as a person? Because when we connect with artists, whether they are writers or with people who are creating other types of art, if we're following the artist themselves, not just the product that they create, it's because we want to know more about them. So lean into who you are at your core, even if that doesn't exactly match up with what you're writing, because it will be easiest to naturally convey those point of view statements, that lifestyle, that identity, all of those things that we talk about in our when we're building brand strategy. So that would be my suggestion for choosing. Rita, I am a magician and explorer. The explorer aspect relates to me over 50 who gave up my job and life in Germany to free myself up from a society focused on performance and moved to Spain this week to have a more joyful life. I love that. Don't have a job yet. Plan is to create an income through my online business. Theme is slow aging. I love your story, Rita. I sell unicorn products in respect to slowing down aging. I love this. And then she asks, is explorer good to relate to my change in life? And then magician for the product side of the story. Yes, that's perfect. Amazing. I love this conversation. I love geeking out about all of your brands. I love hearing about all of the genius that you're bringing to the world. One thing that I meant to say earlier is that I get the honor and the privilege of working with such smart humans. I love all of you so much. And now I get to bring more of you together in this really intentional way within this mastermind community. And it's going to be magical. I cannot freaking wait. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, for investing in your brand, for doing this work. This is so important to put on the CEO hat and to receive this support and to be in these spaces where you are seeing that there are so many other smart, incredible humans that are on this journey with you. It normalizes the challenges and it normalizes the success. It is not unusual to make a very good living by essentially designing your own job description and being who you really are in the world. In fact, it's what works best. It's not something that works overnight, but it's something that is so possible for you. And I would love to support this next phase of growth in your business. And I can't wait to see who joins me inside. Regina said, I purchased one of the brand fluency courses. It was amazingly helpful in understanding my primary archetypes. So I feel that joining the collective is a no-brainer to continue the investigative process and continue to gain more clarity and congruency around defining my brand. Oh, amazing. I'm so excited, Regina. Thank you. I cannot wait to have you inside. All right. Before I completely lose my voice, let me bid you adieu, and I will see many of you in the collective. Thanks, guys.